detail
lie.
on all those points.
Special interview with Priti Patel.
I read the government's
Cabinet
propaganda and press releases yesterday, making claims about lower
Conservative
prices for
MP.
supermarkets. Well, let's be quite clear about what the government is doing to British farmers and how
Politics,
that's actually going to
UK
cost
25.
It's actually not correct, and there's no evidence and details.
Hands at the right side of the screen.
Economic
Times at the bottom, and it is
of what
the
this deal actually means. You've mentioned reduced queues, passport
20th
queues.
of
Well,
May.
I'm sure you
Tuesday
and
morning,
your
I was
viewers
25.
will already know there's something called the EU entry and exit system, which is a digitalisation of EU borders that has already been underway in the same way
Boo.
Home Secretary
Boo.
the programme of digital borders. So this is not new at all.
She's poisonous.
So
I don't like
there are
her.
some serious questions for the government to be answering.
Why is she still an MP? Off of her head.
What mandate did they have to do this? They have betrayed.
Why is Sunak still an MP? Why are the MPs still?
Say that they would reverse all of this.
Boo.
The United Kingdom under the jurisdiction of a foreign court. So all these issues, you've mentioned food, when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to trade, these areas are now going to be determined by the European Court of Justice, the court in Luxembourg. I don't recall during the general election Keir Starmer being honest and transparent with the British people, saying that he was going to do all this.
Excuse me, you're just as bad as he was. You're all the same. You lie, you lie, you lie.
The scrutiny that's required. He did not
Pinocchio lies, Pinocchio lies. Just as bad as Boris Johnson you are.
To this extent.
Okay, but on food and trade, we've just had on the sofa a few minutes ago a man who runs a cheese company in Cheshire, and he says the last few years have been a nightmare. He basically gave up exporting to the EU because he said it was too expensive, it was too complicated. He thinks that Keir Starmer's new arrangement is pragmatic and might potentially save his business and many others around the country.
Sure. Well, look, first of all, I hope that is the case. But I think we all have to recognise that over the last 5 years, the arrangements that were put in place with the trade cooperation agreement under the Conservative government, they were transitional arrangements. We have to have transitional arrangements for food, for produce, for getting goods into the EU. But not only that, I think it's important to recognise, and no one has mentioned this, by the way, and I don't see any commentators mentioning this point. Look at the increase in services to the EU over recent years. Don't forget, goods did go down because of war in Ukraine and the pandemic, but we have had a good relationship with the EU. We've had a very pragmatic relationship with the EU. I know because I was working alongside EU member states when I was Home Secretary on all the key issues, including the negotiation that we did on security and cooperation, which has kept our country safe. And so I do think we have to actually be asking many questions of this government in terms of how we're going to benefit. I want everyone to be in a good position. I have a rural constituency myself, but I can tell you now, farmers, quite frankly, have been shafted under Keir Starmer's government. And what about our fisheries?
Well, let's talk about fishing. You've been very critical. Conservatives have been very critical of the fact that Keir Starmer has agreed to basically continue the current arrangements for another 12 years. But that was an agreement that you, as Conservatives, originally set up. I mean, they're just continuing.
They were transitional arrangements.
Okay.
They were transitional arrangements on the basis that we would go into the next set of talks on the TCA.
Right.
And we would
very interesting.
make sure that we were having the annual negotiations so that our fishermen were not put in a detrimental position. And then what we've now seen is Keir Starmer, a Labour government, do an agreement for 12 years. I mean, do speak to those coastal communities, go up to Grimsby and see what they have to say. This actually puts their futures in jeopardy.
Absolutely.
Because they're now having to compete with European fishermen for a 12-year period.
Absolutely. We're live this morning. We're live this morning in Brixham in Devon, and we've heard that argument from some of the fishers there, the fishermen and women. But at the same time, if you look at the maths, the value of the fishing industry to the UK economy is a fraction, isn't it, of the general food import-export business. And those who support what Keir Starmer's done would say, well, look, maybe a less than ideal arrangement for fishing is a price worth paying for the wider industry.
Well, I'm afraid that is not right. It really isn't. I mean, we know that fishing is not, the largest part of our food and agri economy. We recognise that. But you've got to remember, I mean, even going back to Brexit, that was a political debate about control and ensuring that various aspects of
it took so long.
were not being governed.
Theresa May resigned and Boris took over.
This basically politically,
It started 2015 or 16, wasn't it?
Under the proverbial bus, and I just
10 years on now, we're still having problems with it.
The rights of fishermen and giving them the long-term security.
Crazy, guys. Crazy.
And Brexit was about that, and so it is not. It's inevitable that they will feel let down. And I'm afraid fishing has been used as a bargaining chip for far too long in political discussions under Labour governments, successive Labour governments. It happened under the Tony Blair government as well, with the Common Fisheries Policy.
Hell, here we go. Right on the Labour Party.
Whether, I mean, yes, there are communities, there are people watching right now for whom Brexit is still a really massively important issue and they feel very, very strongly. But I just wonder whether there are also millions and millions of people watching right now who are just turned off by this debate being reopened and by standing up and fighting. You as a party are maybe misreading the vast bulk of the electorate right now.
Well, I don't think that's right. I really don't. And to be quite frank, my party did not reopen this discussion. And to be really quite candid, no reset is better than a bad reset. And, we're covering, even now in this discussion, a range of issues that, demonstrate that this was very difficult to negotiate at the outset. Brexit was a political choice, made by our country, a clear signal from the electorate to the government of the day. We had to do the hard 9 yards, and that's the right thing to do in terms of negotiating post 2016, 17, 18, 19. And it was right to do what was very difficult negotiations and get the United Kingdom on the right footing. We did not reopen those discussions and debates. Keir Starmer and Labour has done that, and they've done that for political reasons. I think, quite frankly, we should have let these changes bed down and just work through the details, whether it's through the Windsor arrangement for Northern Ireland, through the fact that the increase in services to the EU has gone up, and we are a service economy predominantly. On security, we've had good, strong security transitional arrangements, and they're very strong. We had the biggest law enforcement operation under my watch, called Operation Venetic, when I was Home Secretary. So these issues did not have to be reopened. But I genuinely think, we need to be scrutinising the government who have reopened this discussion and ask them, why are they putting Britain under the jurisdiction of a foreign court?
And we will be asking them exactly that. We'll be speaking to
There you go, guys. This is Grace Michelle on Signage Evans. Put a comment in the box below and let me know what you think. What she's saying. This is Grace Michelle on Signage Evans. This is Grace Michelle on Signage Evans.